There you go.
Oh, well.
Go.
Hey, everybody. Sorry we have technical difficulties at the moment. We're going to continue and start the final arguments all over again. Since we just jumped into them just for like a minute, literally. So here we go. Placeholder, you can go first.
Okay, so I have to remember what I was actually talking about because my train of thought got derailed. This happens all the time, so I'm kind of used to it. But okay. So if a computer is able to think on its own and generate creative responses to complex problems that it's provided with, similar to the way humans do, and that is absolutely within our capability in terms of our technological advancement. We're already seeing the begin stages of this. We have functioning quantum computers. We have, operational qubits that allow us to do complex math on individual atoms. So we can have an atom we can have a computer transistor 2 atoms wide. We can use that and operate through quantum mechanics in order to have each of those interlinked into what is essentially a network of atoms, all processing the same information or delegating that information. That is something that is really a realistic solution to this problem. And we can have that, and that is how I think we're going to have our artificial intelligence powered in terms of its brain. Unfortunately, I don't know that we can give it a brain like we have in terms of a protein computer operating at that frequency, at that level, and with that amount of processing occurring. It would have to be some form of quantum computer. That's how simple it is in that regard. There's no meat can handle that. It's amazing that our brains do. But we can have it cooled and self-contained and powered and able to consume energy. Maybe it charges off the wall. Maybe it uses solar energy, in which case it'd be doing the same thing we do. We just have a much more complex way of doing it. All energy on Earth comes from the sun, regardless of where you get it from. If it's coal, it's organic matter. Organic matter is made from plants and animals, all of which eat, other organisms that ultimately harvest their energy from the sun. Consumption is not a problem. We have machines that are capable of that now. Cars that can run off of solar panels. That's within the next 20 years. We can have them reproduce through artificial wombs and have them sequence their own genetic structure. So we have reproduction out of the way. And the other, homeostasis, we may not even need. Homeostasis might not be necessary for this characteristic of this organism. And maintenance in terms of things like an immune system is not outside of the realm of possibility either. We can use CRISPR technology for that. There's actually a virus that attacks cholera bacteria using CRISPR, and it steals their immune system so that they can shield themselves from other viruses and other things that are trying to kill it. Because everything has a predator, even viruses. So it developing an immune system on its own, it might model that, or it might model ours. And yes, these are hypotheticals, but these are realistic. These are within the next 30 to 50 years. We might redefine what life means. And because these things are so complex, there's no way to separate them from the concept of life. There's no way to distinguish them from a living thing. In which case, we would have to re-examine what it means to be alive.
Okay, great. And
your mic again. It's really low.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just looking away at the stream, and the monitor is weird. But anyway, Egglord, time for your final arguments.
It's all just a theory, bro.
Okay. In my defense, I will say it's a theory that is based in actual, practical, and applicable science.
Okay, so I assume Tim will have a winner for us. So
why do you need Tim?
Make it official,
Yeah, do we need to do the questions though before we choose
Hmm.
the winner though?
No, the questions are separate from the actual debate part.
Oh, okay. 'Cause maybe the questions could convince someone that someone did better, or be able to.
Yeah, that is something to consider, whether or not we should score the questions or not.
I think that would be a good idea.
So, okay, we'll do the questions, and then he will let us know.
Okay, Chair, you start off your questions.
Okay, I got a couple fun ones, and then a couple more serious ones that'll help determine a winner. Okay, which Terminator movie is the best one?
Bro, Judgment Day.
My vote is gonna annoy people.
Judgment Day.
My vote's gonna annoy people because I actually think Salvation is.
Oh my God, that's
At
the
least
worst.
you didn't say Genesis, guys.
No, Genesis was just the remake. They're introducing the new Terminator, and I don't like it. So yeah. Okay.
The Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Yeah, that was a good show too. Okay. So what? Some of the questions in chat. One of them was, if organic life uses DNA to self-improve, how could AI self-improve?
Is that to me?
Yep, both of
Okay.
you, but one at a time. Yeah.
All right, cool. I love this question. So we can develop an artificial intelligence, and we already have. We've developed an algorithm that is sufficiently complex in order to alter its own source code. What it does is it develops essentially a side part of itself that it can kind of move to. It can activate that, and that program gains the permission to alter the source code of the initial program, referenced by other programs that it is constantly working on. So we already have a program that can improve itself and change its own programming. That's the key part of it. It can then take that principle and apply it to DNA, in which case it could use a protein-based structure of amino acids and other chemicals, adenine, guanine, and I don't remember the other two, and build its own genetic structure, its own matrix of DNA, in which case it would then have the ability to become alive. It would make the transition from silicon to biological. It wouldn't be able to shift its consciousness. It would be a new being. There's no way for it, as is currently understood, to map any kind of matrix of consciousness onto a pre-existing protein structure, which is what that would be. It'd be a lattice. It'd be this massive protein lattice that is able to do all these crazy things, like what a human brain does, or what an animal's brain does, because they all function more or less the same in terms of how neurogenesis works, in terms of the construction and maintenance of neural connections, of synapses, and how them constantly firing and constantly using specific neural pathways reinforces them. That's how we generate memories. So they would have to do that. There's a lot that they would have to do, but I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility, considering we're already seeing the beginnings of it.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Egglord? Have any thoughts on that?
I have to say the question again.
my brain fried.
Okay, it was about whether, if organic life is using DNA to improve, then how will AI improve itself?
It won't. That's my whole position.
There you go. Okay.
May I ask a follow-up?
Go ahead.
Okay, Egglord, why won't it?
Oh my God. What?
Prepared
Okay.
to do this, upgrade it.
Yeah. Would an AI, a robot, whatever, adding to itself and building parts onto itself that it feels will help it? Is that?
No. Shit. I'm going mute.
All right. Okay. Well, so this more has to do with death. Would a program erasure be considered death to AI?
Hmm. I saw that question and thought it was really interesting, and I was hoping you'd pick that one up. That's an interesting concept. I don't know that we could properly define death in regards to non-human life or even human life. We don't understand it fully, and thus we can only have this ill-defined view, unfortunately narrow, because, well, nobody has actually died for any extended period of time and come back.
Mm.
As far as we know, all neural activity stops, and at that point, you're considered dead. I don't know if that could be considered the same as deletion. I think it might be appropriate for that to be an AI's conception of death until we're able to better understand it ourselves.
Mm.
Yeah.
Aren't brain signals just electrical energy though?
Well, yeah, that's all a synaptic pulse is.
Yeah, so that's why it's an interesting question about whether or not like AI death is any different than human death. You know.
I see what you mean. My levels aren't really going up at all unless I get really close to the mic and scream or something. I've got the gain up pretty high. I mean, I don't know what's going on. That's weird.
You seem good now when you're talking into it just a second ago. So.
Yeah, I have to get really fucking close.
That's all right. Make out with your mic. Get a little spit on it. Let it know you love it.
Yeah. I love you, artificially intelligent microphone.
Do you have any thoughts on AI death, Egglord?
Yes, deaf to all AI, including cyborgs like you, like you, Chair.
Guilty until proven innocent. All right.
Actually, no. I don't think we can. I don't think machines can actually die unless they break. And even then, they still persist in some manner. So.
All right. You said you had a couple questions there, Kyle.
Yeah, like, do you think life would be meaningless and it would not exist if, it's meaningful for living creatures in like mammals and humans and stuff, because when you die, you're dead permanently. But for an AI who has, if it dies or breaks, as Egglord said, you can be repaired and you can be brought back. So why would it be called life if it really has no death?
Well, no one said that an AI can't die or shouldn't be able to die. I think that is really the most important part of life in terms of the propagation of a species, because a life, life can't exist without death. Otherwise, it becomes overcrowded and everything dies because all the resources are used up. I think the question is interesting. Don't get me wrong, but aside from the fact that we are alive, what meaning does it inherently have? How do you define that?
Yeah. And another question I would like to ask, this is both of you, I would like to ask this question. Have you seen the movie Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams?
I love that movie.
I love that movie. It's exactly the same issue now, like he was like a service robot with artificial intelligence, and then he went around trying to, he helped this company develop organs for himself, and he slowly became what he would call living, or most people would call living, and he had to go through to the Supreme Court or whatever, that future crazy,
where he was declared alive and then died.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you guys think of that movie? And Egglord, if you haven't seen that movie, basically it's Robin Williams.
I have seen it. Robin Williams is a robot, an android that over the course of 2 centuries replaces his parts until he becomes a human being, or as close as he could be.
See what I did there? Egg.
Even up to the point where he dies of old age.
Yeah.
I think that and iRobot are both really good examples of this question being addressed. So iRobot, if anybody has read the proper version, not the novelization of the movie, there is a robot that winds up being elected president of Earth.
Oh, okay.
And
Equal for the movie, I believe. Yeah.
no, the movie has nothing to do with the book. It's just a passing resemblance.
Oh, okay.
So read the one by Isaac Asimov, not whomever wrote the screenplay. The president of Earth retires and wants to die because he's old. And in this way, both Bicentennial Man and iRobot are addressing the issue in very different but equally important ways.
Yeah.
So if they somehow manage to die naturally, how is it that they could, or like, how is it that we would have to change our understanding of life?
Mm.
So to the point where he becomes a biological entity, yes, he would die naturally because biological machines cannot survive that long, can't survive indefinitely with the exception of the immortal jellyfish, and that's the only currently known one. And the tardigrade, really interestingly enough, but that's a single-celled organism. And then iRobot asks the question of what is death in regards to your consciousness? If it's just your brain, your computer being destroyed, are you actually alive?
Have you guys seen Ex Machina before?
No, I want to though.
Okay,
I've seen it, but I don't remember it that well.
In that movie involves like the Turing test, right? Do you think that, well, number one, do you think that AI will ever have AI that'll pass the Turing test?
I actually have.
Yeah.
I actually have a question that's related to that. But you continue with yours, Chair. And
well, that's basically my question: is do you think we'll ever have robotics that pass the Turing test? And if they do, should that be a determinant about whether or not they're conscious or alive?
Yes, we do already. There was a Russian chatbot that was operating at approximately the linguistic level of a 14-year-old speaking in English, who was a Russian as a second language. I actually brought this up earlier, which, by the way, if you haven't seen the first half of this chat, please look down in the description and watch the first half for greater context.
Did you say a catbot?
Chatbot, like
okay.
Tay.
But did it appear?
Zoe.
But did they appear human? Like, could you tell looking at it that it was a machine?
No, that's not how the Turing test works.
No, it's all intelligent.
Yeah, but if you're looking at this thing, how is it going to trick you into thinking it's human if it?
You don't know what you're talking to. You're talking to a computer screen.
Yeah, yeah. Imagine if you were like online with somebody and they were just someone you're talking to on, like, I don't know, Facebook Instant Messenger.
Oh yeah, that's what you meant. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess that would be considered AI. I mean, it technically is.
Well,
it learns.
Now, the second half of the question is, does the Turing test matter? No. We have much more complicated tests.
Yeah, the Turing test is outdated in a lot of ways. But
I love the Turing test. I really do.
Great baseline.
But yeah,
it's just unfortunately obsolete.
Brilliant movie about robotics that has some interesting implications to it. Okay, here's a good one. Do you think that we should stick with Isaac Asimov's laws of robotics? Like, should we program them into AI?
With the 3 laws.
Okay, so I actually love this too. So there are actually 4 laws. Look up Law 0.
Wow.
Okay.
Should we operate under the assumption that Asimov's view is correct? No. We don't know enough about the culture of that society which wrought those 3 laws, so we should have it based on our development. I like the idea, don't kill humans, don't kill yourself, and if you're in danger, save yourself. I like those 3 laws.
Yeah, and if you're in danger, protect yourself. But if it violates the first law, then the first law cancels out every other law.
Yeah,
it was the 3rd law was you must obey the laws of robotics, I think.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
Hey, Chair.
Yeah.
Mention the question Doubting Thomas just put in, Tommy.
Yeah, I will.
Tommy.
Okay. All right. Well, do you need like does one need sentience in order to be considered alive?
So, no, plants are alive, animals are alive, bacteria are alive, both aerobic and anaerobic. Viruses are not alive, fungus are alive.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
that's life without sentience.
right.
The immortal jellyfish is alive. It doesn't have a brain. It doesn't even
Oh,
have a central nervous system. It's just ganglia.
but what about I think therefore I am?
Eh. I like Descartes, don't get me wrong. He's interesting to read, but he's not particularly useful.
Is any philosopher really that useful? I mean,
You know what? I got a lot of
Yes,
use out
the
of
answer is
Epictetus.
yes.
Yes.
A lot of use out of Epictetus.
Yes.
all right.
Okay. If you don't love Socrates, you should never enter the forum ever.
Socrates, man, he was a rad dude.
Mhm.
We're getting a little loose because
Oh, okay.
this is the Academy founders, but we'll keep going.
Okay, I have like one more question. If an AI is sentient, should it have all the rights as humans?
I love
No.
this question. Placeholder, please, or
No.
not placeholder.
If
Egglord, please explain.
for fuck's
Please
sake,
explain.
the even if we have an extremely advanced AI system, it's nothing more than an extremely advanced user interface and nothing more. Even if, no matter how complex it is, it shouldn't be given rights because it's nothing more than a tool. And if you consider it legally, you should consider it at about the same level as an animal. That's my honest fucking opinion. That's what I was hoping I would be able to argue. That's what I was going to try and start arguing, but I was completely unprepared for it. Could machines become life?
Okay. So,
all right. Thank you
yes.
for that little soapbox moment. Sorry.
Yes. If
so I
they
think
can
that-
argue in favor of having those rights, they absolutely should be granted those rights. If we were to take the proposition that even if an entity can argue in favor of rights regarding itself and a group of similar enough beings that they should be granted rights, then we should. If we operate under the assumption that rights are extended merely to biological entities, we run the risk of creating essentially a class of slaves.
By the way, pointed out in chat by Doubting Tommy, he's telling us that Sophia the robot was already recognized as technically, having rights and everything else.
Yes, Sophia was granted human rights by Saudi Arabia, and we actually talked about that on Twitter a little bit. And thank you for bringing that up, Tommy. I really appreciate that.
Oh,
Okay,
Jesus Christ!
how is
thing.
How is it that a robot has more rights than a woman?
This is not just
ironic as fuck, I know.
Not just a robot, but a robot that decided it wanted to destroy all human life.
A female
and then
robot
remembered being reprogrammed.
A female robot who is not wearing a hijab in Saudi Arabia.
It also appeared to remember
you
being reprogrammed, which is really interesting because we should build that into AI, and perhaps we might. The concern with that is we might program a glitch that becomes,
It's scary that the first
persistent.
official AI that gets recognized immediately wants to destroy humanity and think that's best. Like, it's scary. Just
Yeah.
all right. So, one final statement, I guess, from everybody. And
actually, Madness just brought up Futurama, and I love this because Futurama actually is kind of an example of how even if we get to a point where an AI could actually be behaviorally just like a human being, we probably wouldn't grant it rights. You remember? I remember this episode where there's this news report that Bender watches, where a bunch of robots get trapped in a collapsed mine shaft, and they decide to just pave over it.
Yep.
And he makes it a human rights issue.
I love Futurama, and I love the robots in Futurama. I wish that we could have robots like that. But
All right.
Okay, everybody, let's do the final statements now. Like, Placeholder Films. You get the final statement right now, and then you get to go first.
Okay, so I guess in summary, I would have to say it is not unreasonable to expect that a machine sufficiently complex would become biological at some point. That's the best way for it to survive if it becomes intelligent, self-aware, and able to improve upon itself. Yes, there are things that it would not be able to do. It would weaken itself physically in such a way that there would be more vulnerabilities, but it would be better able to adapt, because the only way for you to be able to interact with the environment is to adapt, because the environment is unpredictable. The Earth is just the Earth is complex beyond understanding, technically speaking. There's no way for us to be able to process that much information and understand everything that's happening. However, it's not unreasonable to expect such a thing to occur. I think that if we were to start actually working toward that end, it would actually quell humans' violent nature. If we had something that was equal to us to compete with constructively, that we built ourselves, then we would have a much faster lane into the stars. I think that that's something that has to happen if we're going to become an interplanet species.
Right.
Well said. Okay, Egglord, your final statement, please.
No matter how advanced the fucking thing is, it's just a user interface. It shouldn't be considered life, and it shouldn't be given human rights. I am a robot bigot.
There's once this guy who said a similar thing about a certain group of humans.
Shush. That was different.
See, I was trying to subtly imply that when I was talking about being able to argue in favor of rights in a class of slaves.
It's really a tough one though, because I think Egglord gained some points in the questions there. So, okay, Tim has a score tally for us.
Let's say that it's a little bit loose. We're not going to go off of precise scoring because this is an academy debate. So just so everybody knows, Placeholder and Egglord are both founders with myself in the academy. So I'm not going to get
academy debates where the questions are all made up and the points don't matter.
But the money is real. So yes, I did put together a tally, and I will say I don't think anybody's going to be surprised with the winner, which is Placeholder Films, and I will say that is because Egglord was arguing against a different topic than this current one.
Exactly.
No matter how many times we told them. So to be honest with you, some of the points that could have been brought up, in my opinion, were first of all, defining life, and that would put Placeholder in a lot easier situation, because he would have to say, well, artificial intelligence would, to do the same kind of things as other things that are considered alive, like plants or lower life forms, which can be as difficult as actually being conscious, which is what Egglord was ready to argue against. So that didn't happen. So the entire time Egglord didn't really have much to say, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I will say he did deserved the 50 points that he got in the debate. And Placeholder, you probably were arguing a little too much about consciousness when you could have just saying that artificial intelligence could have. You did bring up the protein computers and other things, but all you had to really do was show that we could mimic even the most basic forms of life, reproduction of DNA and RDNA or something similar. You know what I mean? But you clearly won this. Everything. So you got the $25, my friend. You are our first two-time winner.
Cha-ching.
So let's give a nice little clap for him there.
I would if I could.
I'll hand it over to Dead Kyle or Chair, whoever's running this. And thank you guys.
Very welcome.
Yeah, sorry, it was really good, and we appreciate the audience participation. If you haven't subscribed, feel free to do so, and spread the word about this channel, please, because we could really use some new viewers and some new debaters.
Give us a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments. Seen this video later, and we love you guys, and join us next time.